Good morning. Happy Monday. It is May 13th. Welcome to Journal Society. Grab your journals and let's jump into it. So, let's talk about making decisions. And sometimes they can be hard or difficult. Sometimes decisions, when we have to make difficult decisions, we experience, stress. I know for myself, self-talk comes up a lot because I try to talk myself out of it. Um, and some of us do that. Like some of us think, and we go through this rabbit hole of, the self-talk, and then it gets to the limiting beliefs that, should you be having this conversation? Who gives you the right to be having this conversation? Um, who do you think you are? So those are some of the self-talk statements and limiting thoughts we have with ourselves. And then some of us are scared to have like transparent conversations because we're worried about how is that conversation going to make that other person feel. Um, and some of us just avoid the conversation because it's uncomfortable and it causes too much stress. And maybe the other person, if you have a relationship with that person, you know how they're going to um, take that information that you're giving them. So it may not go well. But who are you thinking about in that situation when you make those decisions of avoiding the conversation? And what are you going to carry and continue to be in or experience as a result of not having those uncomfortable conversations or avoiding that conversation, I should say. So, I always got some strategies for you because we can't go on. Um, the reality is we have to make difficult decisions in our lives. It's part of life. It's part of living and the experience we are going throughout life. So we have to make difficult decisions. I don't know what's going on with me this morning. But here are some strategies for you to think about. Um, when you encounter difficult decisions or you are um, you are struggling with having uncomfortable conversations. So the first one is asking yourself questions. So an example of that could be, how is this decision going to change my life or relationships? So that's a good reflective question to really think about when you are um, going to make a decision or you're making a difficult decision. The other thing is to make a list of your pros and cons and really list them out. And what I like to do, I love pros and cons lists, so I always encourage people to do them. And give I do them throughout the week because each day, as you continue to think about your decisions or think about what you're trying to make a decision on, different pros and cons come up for that in that situation. So I always do it for a week. I put it in my phone. I use my Google Docs. I create a T chart and I put pros and cons and what I'm trying to make a decision on, and I just list it. So and that's how I do it. And then by the end of the week, I review my pros and cons list, and then I make my decision based on those things. Um, and then speaking to someone you trust. And if you don't have someone you trust, you can also reach out to a coach, book just a one-off coaching session to just talk through that. Or if you have a therapist, and if you don't have a therapist, you can check out a therapist to help you with that decision making that you're trying to make. Because sometimes having a neutral person who doesn't know anything about the situation besides what you're bringing to the table is always helps you to see through a different lens. Um, and then lastly, which I like doing, is picturing yourself already made the decision. So what does that look like and what is it going to feel like once you're picturing yourself in the moment, you're making the decision and it's happening. So with that being said, let's jump into today's journal prompt. So grab your journal. Look at this. I love that. If you don't have one of our journals, I suggest you go grab one. But when you get to this part of the journal, it means that the journal is almost done. And I love that because it means I get to get a new journal. So today's journal prompt is, think of a time when you had to communicate a difficult decision. How did you communicate trust and transparency in that conversation? I'm going to read it one more time. Think about a time when you had to communicate a difficult decision. How did you communicate trust and transparency in that communication? And as always, the visual so that you can actually read will be posted right after this live. But yeah, let's journal. I love this journal prompt. So I'll just share briefly one of my ways of communicating. So I shared my strategy of what I do before. I like to use the burger analogy. So before I put everything in the middle, the meat, I make sure that I'm writing out my pros and cons list. And then I go into the conversation with 2 to 3 points that I want to address. So if last week's journal prompt, you can go back and watch, but I talked about not bringing too many points to the conversation, especially when you're communicating. Only high level things that that need to be communicated, and limiting it to 2 to 3 points. So I would bring 2 to 3 key points to the conversation, and then I would have a reflective of those 2 to 3 points of like what are the positive outcomes of this decision, like what will we both experience or what would I experience, depending on the topic of the conversation. And then closing out the conversation, so we're putting the bun on top of the burger, and we're looking at what new opportunities, now that you've had that difficult conversation and you were transparent, what new opportunities can arise from that clear communication. I want to wish you a happy Monday. Have an amazing week. And I will see you on Friday at 7:50 right here for Journal Society. Bye.